Empress Aeltara's voice cut through the pandemonium of the grand atrium like a vibroblade through silk. Secure the human. Bring him to the palace healers, alive and intact. No delays. Her mandibles clicked sharply, the Imperial command brooking no dissent as armored retainers surged forward, their iridescent carapaces gleaming under the vaulted crystal dome. Princess Lissa clung to her side, trembling fronds half furled in shock, the assassin's neural disruptor pulse still echoing in the air, where it had scorched the human's shoulder instead of her fragile neck. The attacker lay crumpled, dispatched by Jacob Oren's improvised counter. A human gesture so swift and unerring it had left Aelthara's guards momentarily frozen. Now, as the interloper was dragged away for interrogation, the human himself slumped against a pillar, one broad hand clamped over the seared flesh, the other steadying Lissa even as blood-thick, crimson mammalian, seeped between his fingers. He met Aelthara's gaze without flinching, his pale eyes steady amid the alien throng, and rasped, "She's clear, ma'am. Check her vitals." Xenophobes in the hovering crowd hissed, their pheromone vents releasing acrid bursts of alarm scent that prickled Aelthara's sensory pits. She ignored them, striding forward with Lissa in tow, her regal train whispering over the marble. Up close, the human's competence unnerved her. No panic, no collapse, just that relentless focus. "You will be examined," she declared, her voice a silken steel thread. "Your actions demand it, for the Dominion's sake." By the time the grav litter bore Jacob Oren into the palace's sterile sanctum, the Imperial Council had convened in the Chamber of Thorns, its walls etched with the genealogies of 1,000 iron sovereigns. Althara took her throne of woven neurocrystal, its pulses sinking to her resolve, while Lissa was whisked to a side alcove for monitoring. The air thickened with factional scents, sharp citrus from the radicals, cloying vanilla from the diplomats. High Arbiter Vexcor rose first, his fronds rigid with zeal. "Ancient law is unequivocal, Sovereign. The claim of protection invokes execution for any outsider who interposes in royal bloodlines. This, primate shielded the air. Purge it, lest we invite galactic mockery." Murmurs rippled, vents flaring in agreement. Across the chamber, diplomat Silvera, countersent, her pheromones smooth and opportunistic. "Execution wastes leverage, Arbiter. Humans infest the enclaves like vermin. Use this one as coin. Trade him back for concessions on the rim worlds. Their envoy contingent simpers for heroes." Aelthara's mandibles parted fractionally, betraying the crack in her propriety, a flicker of intrigue amid the outrage. Humans were primitives, soft-fleshed opportunists scraping at Dominion fringes, yet this Jacob Oren had pivoted into the disruptor's arc with preternatural timing, his body absorbing the pulse that would have unraveled Lissa's neural web. She scented the council's fracture, radicals baying for blood to appease the purest houses, diplomats scheming for profit, and the silent military clique watching her every twitch. "Silence," she commanded, her voice resonating through the chamber's amplifiers. "The human lives. For now." Chief Surgeon Kael'tor, report. The surgeon, his carapace scarred from a dozen campaigns, approached from the sanctum link, data slate pulsing in his grasp. "The wound is grave, Sovereign, neural charring across the deltoid matrix, equivalent to our tertiary burns." Yet he stabilized himself en route. Applied a field compress from his own kit, cauterized secondary bleed with a thermal strip, mammalian resilience, undocumented. Aelthara leaned forward, her primary eyes locking on his. "Document it all, Kael'tor. Every technique, every improvisation. Do not dismiss as anomaly." The order hung, a private signal amid the bluster. She would not let xenophobic reflex blind her to potential utility. The council scented her shift, subtle unease from Vexcor, opportunistic curiosity from Silra. In the adjacent healing vault, accessed via crystal viewport, Jacob Oren refused the ceremonial beer. Retainers had bound him loosely for protocol, but he shrugged off the haze mist sedative with a grimace, rolling to his knees despite the blistering wound. "No," he said firmly to the hovering aides, his voice carrying through the comm feed to the council. "Account for the gear first. Disruptor residue on the floor. Test it." "And Lissa, did her scans clear?" Aeltara watched, mandibles tightening. Ceremonial passivity was the iron way for wards. Submit, be healed, be judged. Yet here he knelt, one-handedly sorting his spilled medkit, rethreading a tourniquet lace, scanning a bioreader for contaminants, all while querying Lissa's status. His free hand flexed experimentally, testing pain thresholds without a wince, then applied a fresh sealant patch with multitasked precision. Eyes flicking between tools wound in the room's exits. Disciplined restraint, she noted inwardly, like a soldier triaging mid-battle. Ironetics faltered under less. This human juggled crisis layers as if breathing. Vexcor's vents erupted in fury pheromone. Insolence, bind him fully. He defies the throne's grace. Observe, Elthara interjected, her tone brooking no interruption. Through the feed, Jacob glanced up at the viewport, spotting her silhouette. Empress, he called evenly. No deference laced with groveling. The strike was tuned for Iran physiology. Narrowband neural spike. My dermal weave took the brunt, but check your assassin's mods. Human baselines don't fry like that. He demonstrated peeling back a singed undersuit layer to reveal adaptive mesh, field-woven, self-repairing, while simultaneously logging triage data on a wrist pad. No complaint, no fatigue, just work. Kael'Tor's data slate chimed. Confirmed, Sovereign. His triage stabilized vitals 23% faster than protocol. Pattern recognition across species. He adapted our scanner mid-use. The chamber fractured audibly now. Radicals chanting for execution. Diplomats hissing bids. Silverline toward Aelthar's throne. Vents low. Leverage incarnate. Sovereign. But radicals swell. Concede or contain. Aeltara rose, her form casting long shadows across the thorns. Duty warred within. Ancient law demanded death to preserve purity, yet Lyssa's life pulsed because of this outsider's impossible pivot. Xenophobes saw threat in his competence, a human unraveling iron exceptionalism, but she scented deeper calculus, stability first, execute, and human enclaves rioted, fracturing rim alliances, leverage him, and purists revolted, toppling succession. Containment. That was the conservative blade. Her pheromones flooded the chamber, imperial resolve overlaying resolve, cool mint dominance. Hear the sovereign decree. By the claim of protection, Jacob Oren is hereby bound as ward of the throne. No execution, no trade. He remains under Lyssa's aegis, his movements tethered to her safety. Gasps rippled, Vexcor reeled, fronds lashing. Sovereign, this invites chaos. A soft skin in the palace core. Chaos is the assassin's gift, Aelthara retorted, her voice cracking with rare heat, propriety fraying at the edges. He thwarted it, now he serves. She turned to the viewport, mandibles firm. The human met her gaze again, nodding once. Respect without subservience. Before resuming his self-triage, endurance unyielding as aides finally approached with sanctioned tools. As council dissolved into ordered recess, sense of reluctant compliance lingering, Aelthara retreated to her strategium alcove. Lyssa slept soundly now, neural webs intact, but the human's presence gnawed at imperial certainties. She activated a secure terminal, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. A limited inquiry, origins, affiliations, capabilities, dispatch subtle probes to human enclaves, cross-reference his cipher marks, assess if this ward bolstered Dominion security or eroded it. Through the viewport, Jacob Oren stood at last, wound sealed, refusing a hover chair. He moved to Lyssa's alcove edge, scanning readouts with that same quiet multitasking, one eye on her, the other logging notes. Kael'Tor approached hesitantly. Data slate extended. Your methods. Teach me? Jacob paused, then shared the wristpad interface, explaining adaptations in clipped bursts. The surgeon's fronds perked, amazement dawning. Aelthara watched, a private warmth threading her resolve. Duty bound them now, but this human's ordinarity masked something profound. One choice averted death, the next would bind worlds or break them. Aelthara's voice cut through the vaulted chamber like a blade unsheathed. By right of the veil and the blood debt owed, Jacob Oren of the human enclaves is hereby bound as ward of the Iron Crown. He shall stand within these halls, his form clad in the silks of retention, until the stars decree otherwise. The assembled court, high lords in their iridescent robes, alliance envoys with crests flickering like captive nebulae, stirred in constrained murmurs. Jacob knelt at the chamber's heart, his broad shoulders squared beneath the draped silks that marked him less protector than ornament. The fabric, woven from Iran thread spiders, clung awkwardly to his denser frame, forcing a posture of stillness that chafed against his operative's instincts. Aelthara noted the subtle tension in his jaw, the way his eyes scanned the honor guard without turning his head. Humiliating, yes, for a warrior who had interposed his body for Lyssa's, but necessary. The protocols demanded it. Wards bowed low, spoke only when bidden, their autonomy a ghost in imperial shadow. She descended the dais steps, her own robes whispering against crystal floors etched with the Dominion's conquest maps. Lyssa stood at her side, the princess's tendrils quivering with a mix of awe and unease, her wound a faint scar beneath ceremonial veils. "Rise, Ward," Iothara commanded, her tone brooking no fracture in decorum. Jacob complied fluidly, towering now among the Aeron guards whose lithe forms seemed elongated by comparison. He met her gaze levelly, offering no bow deeper than protocol allowed, a deference measured, not abject. The chamber's air hummed with the low thrum of restraint fields, muting overt dissent, but Iothara felt the fault lines beneath. Lord Vexar, suitor to half the outer rims and broker of the Kael'tor alliances, leaned forward from his alcove. "Empress, the ward's binding honors the debt, yet the procession looms. Shall he march in the van, exposed as a talisman for xenophiles?" Before she could respond, Captain Thaler of the Vale Wardens stepped forth, his crest plates rattling in agitation. "The schedule breaches protocol, my sovereign. The human's integration displaces the third lance." Jacob's voice interjected, calm and precise, as if charting a routine patrol. "With respect, Captain. The third lance rotates to flank duty under Right 47, Alpha. Slotting the ward procession there avoids the solar flare interference on the eastern approach. I've cross-referenced the orbital logs." Thalor's frills flared in shock, his multifaceted eyes whirring as he accessed his neural link. The chamber fell into a stunned hush. Iothara's own advisors exchanged glances. Such minutiae belonged to sub-officers, not wards. Yet Thalor's confirmation came swift. "The flare, yes. Projected cascade at zenith." "How did a bound human pattern from envoy briefings?" Jacob replied evenly, his posture unchanging. "Humans drill on multi-vector threats. It's habit." Iothara suppressed a flicker of intrigue. Situational competence, layered atop his field instincts, another thread in the human's unassuming weave. The court saw a kneeling curiosity. She glimpsed a tactician who multitasked imperial esoterica without strain. Vexar recovered first, his voice oily with maneuver. "Admirable, Ward. Yet such gifts warrant containment. Bind him ritually to Lady Sirith's house. Her veils demand a consort of proven vigilance. The technicality dissolves his wardship into alliance debt, neutralizing anomalies." Murmurs swelled. Sirith, a minor alliance broker with ambitions coiled like a nebula serpent, inclined her head, her pheromones broadcasting calculated allure. Other suitors chimed in, Lord Kren proposing a cipher vow that would chain Jacob's skills to archival drudgery, Baroness Lyra suggesting a marriage proxy to domesticate the outlier. Their proposals wove legal thorns, each designed to tokenize the human, rendering him a ritual fixture rather than a threat to xenophobic equilibria. Iothara's resolve hardened, her crest pulsing once in restrained ire. These vipers scented weakness in Lyssa's survival, probing for leverage to fracture her succession. "Proposals noted," she stated, her voice a glacial front. "The ward remains unbound by secondary rights." Dismissed. The audience dissolved into whispers as she signaled the guard. Jacob followed silently to her private antechamber, the doors sealing with a resonant chime. Lyssa had been ushered away earlier, leaving them alone amid holographic star charts and the faint scent of preservation incense. "Confinement to palace quarters," Iothara ordered a hovering drone, her gaze fixed on Jacob. "Limited duties, escort Lyssa during daylight cycles, no access to outer grids. You remain visible to advisors, a reminder of the debt fulfilled." He nodded once, arms loose at his sides. "Understood, Empress, but tokenizing me as ward or consort changes nothing. I saved your heir because it's what we do. Guard the pack. If that's a threat to your court, say it plain." The directness pierced her formal shell, a crack she hadn't anticipated. No Iran underling spoke so, presuming neither grovel nor glory. She circled him slowly, noting the steady rhythm of his breath, unlabored, enduring where her guards would flag after hours of vigil. "You presume much, human. Aeron wards serve in silence. And humans adapt," he countered mildly, eyes tracing a flickering chart without prompting. "Your protocols are solid, but rigid. Like that procession, fix-rote paths miss the flare's shadow. We're not here to upend your order, just Keep it intact. Inefficiency, she realized, lay not in him but in underestimating this agency. Xenophobic assumptions painted humans as blunt instruments. Jacob wove patterns across domains as naturally as breathing, his humility veiling a resilience that shamed her courtier's fatigue after mere cycles of debate. A private warmth stirred again, threading duty with curiosity. He refused to be diminished, yet offered alliance without demand. A chime shattered the moment, urgent from the outer halls. Sovereign. Captain Thalor's voice crackled. Xenarch Korid's faction breaches decorum. They demand symbolic trial of the ward's purity. Poison veil challenge in the atrium. Armed retainers accompany. Eltara's frill snapped erect, fury coiling. Korid, that purest relic, testing her resolve with theater. The poison veil rite was archaic, a gesture to purge foreign taint, but lethal if unmet. Jacob tensed fractionally, hand twitching toward absent gear. Enforce security, she commanded the drone. Full cordon. Thalor, escort the Xenarchs to holding vaults. No trial proceeds without my seal. As guards mobilized beyond the doors, their boots echoing in synchronized march, Elthara turned to Jacob. His face held no fear. Only assessment, scanning exits, ally positions, improvising contingencies from palace fixtures alone. They won't strike direct, he murmured. Symbolic push to force your hand. Indeed. She met his gaze, propriety thinning as peril sharpened focus. Stand ready, ward. Your ordinarity may yet bind more than worlds. Thalor burst through moments later, Korid's lead retainer in tow. A hulking Aaron with vial clutched like a talisman. Empress. The human profanes our veil. Submit him to purge. Eltara rose to full stature, her presence a gravitational force. Profanity lies in your presumption, retainer Voss. The ward saved the air. Your challenge insults the blood debt. Seize the vial. Guards swarmed, restraining Voss amid his thrashing protests. Korid's faction would simmer, not erupt, not yet, but the atrium secured under doubled watches. Jacob had not moved, his stillness a tactical anchor, reading the retainer's micro-twitches that Thalor missed entirely. As order restored, Elthara dismissed the captain with a nod. Alone again, she regarded the human. His correction of the protocol, his refusal of tokenization, now this poised endurance amid provocation, capabilities stacking like unforeseen stars. The court maneuvered to neutralize him. She saw utility in alliance. Duty demanded control, yet his competence whispered of partnership. You adapt swiftly, she conceded, voice low. Even Iran tacticians falter under such layering. He shrugged, humble as ever. Teamwork. Your protocols held the line. I just spotted the gap. Warmth deepened. A personal thread amid intrigue. Formalities masked fault lines, binding human to ritual, testing her resolve. But in Jacob's unassuming gaze, she glimpsed worlds aligning. A blade flashed in the gloom of the servants' corridor, slicing toward Princess Lissa's unguarded flank. Jacob Oren moved without thought, his hand snapping out to seize the attacker's wrist mid-arc, twisting it in a fluid disarmament honed from too many shadowed ops. The assassin's knife clattered to the stone as Jacob drove his elbow into the soft juncture beneath the jaw, dropping the figure limp before it could cry out. Lissa spun, her iridescent crest flaring in shock, eyes wide on the crumpled Aaron servant, now revealed as no servant at all, his robes hiding assassin's harness. Jacob, how did you? Stay behind me, he murmured, scanning the alcoves, breath steady despite the adrenaline surge. No accomplices stirred. His pattern red held, single operative, rushed entry. He knelt swiftly, binding the assailant's hands with a strip torn from the hem of his own tunic. Improvised, efficient, while Aaron guards boiled into the corridor, plasma lances humming to life. Captain Vera arrived first, her armored crest rigid with outrage. Human, explain this breach. Her gaze flicked to the bound form, then back, mandibles clicking in disbelief. No Iran guard moved that seamlessly against a trained killer. Their protocols demanded assessment first, strike second, flank blind spot. Jacob said calmly, rising and gesturing to the unlit grate overhead. He dropped from there, check for residue, vents linked to the outer service ducts. He multitasked without strain, already noting Lissa's shallow breaths, her hand trembling on his arm. A quick scan. No wounds, just shock. Princess is unharmed. Get her secured. Vera's squad swarmed the grate, confirming his call moments later. Whispers rippled among them. Impossible foresight. From the off-worlder? Lissa leaned into him briefly, a rare breach of protocol, before straightening with imperial poise. Word raced to the throne vault, like plasma fire. Empress Aeltara felt it before the herald burst in, her inner membranes prickling with the subtle shift in the palace's hum, the guards' comms spiking, courtiers' murmurs cresting beyond the vault doors. She rose from her strategy holithith, dismissing the flickering border skirmish projections with a gesture. Duty first. Lissa, the council chamber erupted as she entered, rival houses already at throats. Lord Kalis of House Voran leveled a crested finger at Lady Thorn of Sirith. Your agents infest the lower corridors, Thorn. This reeks of your desperation to destabilize the succession. Desperation? Thorn's mandible snapped. Voran's spies choke the vents. Your doing, to paint us all as traitors while you hoard the heir's favor. The chamber's crystal spires rang with their barbs, xenophobic undercurrents bubbling. And what of the human ward? His presence invites chaos. Aelthara's voice cut the din like a decree blade, formal and unyielding. Enough. The attempt fails, my daughter lives. Accusations without proof weaken us all. She settled onto the elevated dais, her gaze sweeping the assembly. Strength unbroken, though inwardly the frayed edges of propriety tugged. Jacob's gaze from yesterday lingered in her mind, that unassuming steadiness amid ritual bindings, worlds aligning or unraveling. Counselor Ellen, her most trusted probe master, leaned in. Empress, the attacker bears no house marks, ghost operative. But the human, he neutralized without aid. The guards demand details on his methods. Transparency. Lord Kalis pressed, sensing leverage. This off-worlder moves like a shadow operative, undisclosed. What arts does he hide? Exile him before he fractures our defenses. Murmurs swelled. Human anomaly, threat to purity. Aeltara quelled them with a raised crest, her resolve a bulwark. Dismissal had been easy once, now curiosity coiled, calculated. His feats accumulated, saving Lissa twice. Now this, not savagery, precision. What else lies coiled in that frame? Probe the assassin. She commanded publicly. Full spectrum, toxins, handlers, access logs. House Voran and Sirith, submit your manifests, or face sequestration. Privately, as the chamber cleared, she signaled Ellen to her sanctum. The advisor's holopad glowed under her touch. Map the human's contacts, Aelthara instructed, voice low, the crack and formality a whisper. Not suspicion. Clarity. Who trained him? What networks reach from his envoyship? Discreetly. Ellen's crests twitched. Surprise at the pivot from pawn to asset. Aelthara met her gaze evenly. He preserves my bloodline. Utility demands understanding. By dawn's aurora, the demonstration chamber thrummed with guarded tension. Aelthara observed from the shadowed balcony, Lissa at her side, proximity a deliberate step, testing the human's integration. Below, 24 palace guards formed ranks, their lances stowed for the drill. Jacob stood unarmored, tunic marked from the corridor scuffle, facing Captain Vera's skeptical squad. Preventives, he began, voice even. No bravado. Assassins exploit routines, corridors like that one. Blind angles here. He paced, pointing without flourish, multitasking a live holosim of the attack. Plank coverage, pair sentries offset by thirds. Vents, sealants or motion webs, but improvise. Here, a weighted cord across the grate trips mass. He demonstrated, looping a guard's sash into a taut snare, his hands blurring through the field maneuver that had felled the killer. Guards leaned in, crests flickering, amazement veiled as scrutiny. Vera tested it herself, lunging at a dummy. The cord snapped true, lancing the target mid-strike. Efficient, she admitted, mandibles parting in reluctant respect. Our protocols layer redundancies. Yours, distill. Jacob nodded humbly. Redundancies save lives, Captain. Layer this atop, humans call it hybrid. No lecture, just work. He juggled sim tweaks while answering queries, adapting iron terms on the fly. Lissa watched rapt from above, whispering, he learns us as we falter. Aeltara felt the shift in her chest, intrigue blooming to regard. His humility disarmed more than his skills. No arrogance, just quiet capability. Ordinary to them? Extra. Ordinary here. Opponents struck at Vesper's council. Lord Kalis rose, holovid of the corridor fight replaying Jacob's blur. This asset thwarts a strike, yet invites more. Xenophobes abroad whisper of human meddling. Exile him. Preserve dominion purity. Lady Thorne echoed, sensing the tide. The fragile pact with his envoy phrase. Send him back to his primitives, before he unravels court order. The chamber tensed, eyes on Altera. She stood, propriety a regal armor. But the personal thread pulled taut. Jacob's gaze yesterday, now his deeds safeguarding her heir. Exile wasted utility. Containment harnessed it. Adjust assumptions? Yes. Strategically. Exile weakens us, she declared, voice resonant. The human integrates, turning to Vera summoned below. Captain, veteran of the Vale Wars, you oversee his placement in inner defense. Train with him, contain and utilize. Report directly to me. Vera saluted, crests high, honor laced with curiosity. Kalis seethed, but the vote locked. Containment prevailed. Lys's hand brushed Elthara's, a silent bond. Later, in the vault's hush, Altara reviewed Ellen's prelim map. Human envoy log sparse. Jacob's record a cipher of quiet ops across fringe worlds. Endurance in sieges, patterns from disparate wars, curiosity hardened to intent. Fault lines remained, but in this pawn-turned asset, stability found new footing. Warmth flickered deeper, intrigue yielding to partnership's edge. Jacob Oren, bound by claim, now wove into her web, not as threat, but thread strengthening the whole. Aelthara's claws tightened on the armrests of her throne, as high legalist Vorak unrolled the ancient vellum, its edges frayed from centuries in the imperial vaults. The council chamber hummed with the low thrum of Aeron nobles, their iridescent scales shifting in shades of warning amber. By the edict of pure lineage codified in the Third Dynasty, Vorak intoned, his voice a blade wrapped in silk. No sovereign may bind the bloodline to a non-Aeron without ratification of the full conclave. This, human ward defiles the claim on Princess Lyssa's behalf. Across the chamber, Lord Kalis, the rival suitor whose eyes gleamed with opportunistic fire, leaned forward. Worse, Majesty. Whispers from the border outposts link this Jacob Oren to the Thalor Concordance's agents. A primitive guardian, they say, yet versed in their shadow tongues. Coincidence erodes under scrutiny. Aelthera's gaze flicked to Jacob standing silent at the chamber's edge in his unadorned envoy leathers, hands clasped behind him like a statue carved from unyielding stone. No flinch, no protest, merely that steady human watchfulness as if he weighed the room's currents without a ripple. Her mandibles clicked softly, a private fracture in her composure. The warmth from their last exchange lingered, unbidden. His quiet counsel in the antechamber, turning suspicion into strategy. Now, this evidence, Lord Kalis, she commanded, her voice echoing like struck crystal. Rumors are the chaff of weak minds. Kalis smiled, thin and predatory, gesturing to a data slate borne by his aides. Intercepted missives from the border, encoded in Thalor ciphers, layers upon layers, unbreakable by our finest decryptors. Yet patterns emerge, references to the off-world shield, timed with Oren's arrival. He is no mere protector. The slate passed among the council, murmurs rising like steam from a caldera. Elthara extended a claw, scanning the glyphs herself. Fractured streams of data, woven with fractal obfuscation no Iran codebreaker had pierced in weeks. Her analysts had labored through shifts, yielding only fragments. Human, she said, turning to Jacob with measured calm, though her pulse quickened beneath her scales. You have studied these? He stepped forward unhurried, bowing his head just enough to honor without submission. Yes, Empress, with permission. The council stilled. Vorak's frills flared in disdain. A primitive species versed in galactic ciphers? Absurdity. Jacob accepted the slate without comment, his fingers dancing across it, pausing, tracing, eyes narrowing, as if reading not code but a living rhythm. Aelthara watched, transfixed despite herself. No grand gestures, no boasts, just focus. Layering mental threads she could almost see him juggling. Symbol clusters against known Thalor dialects. Frequency shifts, contextual echoes from envoy briefings. Minutes stretched, the chamber's air thickening with impatience. Then, a soft chime. The slate bloomed with decrypted text, clear as dawn light. Initiate shadowfall at the Vale Nexus, 3 cycles hence. Jacob read aloud, voice even, as if reciting a market list. The off-world shield draws eyes inward, strike the flanks blind. Concordance rises. A border incursion, Empress, not invasion. Guerrilla probes to test your garrisons while the court's distracted. Gasps rippled through the nobles. Vorak's scales paled to ash. Kalis recoiled, his frills collapsing. Aelthara felt the chamber's gravity shift, her own mind reeling. Cryptographic mastery like this, from a human? Their records painted baselines as brute endurance. Not this pattern-weaving artistry. How had he pierced what eluded her savants? She masked her awe with a nod, impeccable. Lord Kalis, your evidence unmasks itself. Jacob handed back the slate, expression unchanged. Humble, as if any might have done the same. But Aelthara saw the quiet competence, the effortless adaptation to alien systems. It unnerved her, this human who dismantled assumptions without effort. In her private sanctum later, away from prying frills, she paced the obsidian floors, the decrypted missives holographically arrayed before her, duty ward within. The ancient statutes Vorak championed, safeguarded purity, stability. Yet security demanded action. Jacob's revelation exposed fractures. Failure opportunists exploiting her court's chaos. To ignore it invited collapse. Send a veiled diplomatic probe to the Concordance emissary, she ordered her shadow aide. Voice low. Neutral tone. Inquiries on border stability, with subtle warnings of our vigilance. The aide bowed, vanishing into the ducts. Aelthara's claws flexed. Publicly, she must uphold the law. Privately, bend it for the Dominion's spine. The Grand Council reconvened at dusk, crystal spires casting blood-red light across the assembly. Kalis pressed again, his faction swelling with legalists. The statutes demand severance, Majesty. This human taints the heir's claim. Aelthara rose, her presence filling the hall like a gathering storm. Formal propriety held, but cracks showed in her direct gaze. Severance? When this taint unveils threats that blind our borders, Jacob Orin's skills serve the Dominion. Dismiss him, and we court the very incursions he forewarns. Murmurs crested, unease rippling, admiration warring with xenophobia. She pressed on, voice steel-wrapped velvet. His utility is proven. Question it further, and you question imperial sight. Kalis subsided, glowering, but the tide turned. Nobles exchanged glances, frills tinting with reluctant respect. Aelthara felt the shift, a deliberate bulwark around Jacob's place, not affection. Partnership, forged in necessity. That night, instability cracked wider. In the lesser advisory wing, a scream pierced the palace vents. Aelthara arrived amid chaos. Minor advisor Tisra convulsed on the floor, foam bubbling from her mandibles, a half-emptied chalice overturned beside her. Healers swarmed, anti-venom injectors hissing, but her scales mottled black. Poison, the lead healer confirmed. Frills quivering, rare neurotox, smuggled from the outer rims. Targeted. Aelthara's blood chilled. Tisra advised on Lissa's wardship, her ambiguity shielding Jacob's status from full legal assault. This strike eroded that cover, exposing the court's rot. Factions moved in shadows now. Kalis's hands suspected but unprovable. Jacob appeared at her summons, summoned from his quarters without alarm. Empress? Assess, she said tersely, gesturing to the scene. He knelt, gloved hands probing the chalice residue, sniffing, then scanning with a compact human device from his belt. Field kit, she recalled from envoy dossiers.
Contact toxin, fast-acting, he murmured, multitasking.
Sampling, cross-referencing on his wrist pad, interviewing the trembling server.
Administered post-pour.
Killer knew her routine. No panic, just layered efficiency. Endurance in crisis. Reading the human elements her irons missed. The server's averted gaze, the faint tremor. Perpetrators aimed to destabilize, he concluded, rising. Tisra's fall pressures your legal shield for me. Aelthara met his eyes, the warmth flickering deeper now. Intrigue hardening to alliance. His humility disarmed, competence compelled. The statutes choked, but prerogative breathed freer. Dawn Council broke with her decree. The public marriage negotiations. Nullified. Gasps echoed. Vorak surged forward. Majesty, the law. Overruled by imperial necessity. Her voice cut like a prowler's talon. Jacob Orin is named Provisional Protector of Princess Lissa. direct writ of the throne. He guards her person, as he has proven capable. Kaelus's face twisted, legalists murmuring fury, but none dared counter. Lyssa, entering at Q, stood tall beside Jacob, youthful scales bright, a silent endorsement. Iothara watched Jacob's subtle bow to the princess, pack bond forming without fanfare. Yet as aides cleared, a new alert chimed, fresh intercepts, heavier encryption veiling not one incursion, but a cascade. Thalor fleets massing, timed to her court's fracture. Larger danger loomed, statutes be damned. Strategic need demanded she wield this human thread, lawmongers yielding to survival's blade. Aelthara's claw slammed the console, silencing the chime as holographic intercepts bloomed across the chamber's vaulted dome. Thalor strike cruisers slicing through the veil past garrison's outer nets, their vectors timed to the court's fresh schism. Mobilize the third lance, she commanded, voice a tempered blade amid the aide's frantic scramble, and patch me through to Warden Kale at the pass, now. The line crackled live, Kale's scaled face materializing in grainy urgency. His frills flared against the red glow of klaxons behind him. Empress, they've breached the eastern ridge. Drones swarming the choke. Our lines folding. Reinforcements are hours out. Her gaze flicked to the secondary feed. Jacob Oren, the human ward. Already at the forefront, his form a blur amid Aaron's sentries in the pass's shadowed defile. No ceremonial posturing, he barked orders in clipped Dominion standard, gesturing at terrain hollows projected from a scavenged pad. Flank the drones from the overhang. Use the shale bursts for cover. You two, rig charges on that fault line. We'll avalanche the bastards. Kale's relayed voice cut in, strained. Human, this is no drill. Fall back to protocol. Protocol gets us flanked, Jacob shot back, stripping a power cell from a fallen drone mid-stride, his hands a seamless whirl as he jury-rigged it into a sentry's rifle. No fatigue in his posture, no pause for breath after hauling debris to fortify a breach. Just relentless motion, eyes scanning patterns in the chaos that her officers recited by rote. He pivoted, spotting a Thaler infiltrator cresting the ridge, and felled it with the improvised grapnel shot before it could signal. Aelthara watched, transfixed, as the human orchestrated the counter. Sentries multitasked under his lead, firing while repositioning emitters, adapting drone wreckage into decoys that drew enemy fire into kill zones. Where Iran doctrine demanded rigid phalanxes, Jacob wove creativity from the debris, predicting swarm vectors from subtle gravitic shifts others missed. The pass held. Drones splintered against his avalanche, buying precious hours as reinforcement signatures pinged on the horizon. Kale's report flooded in, breathless with disbelief. Empress, he turned it, held the line with half our losses projected. Thalor vanguard shattered. They're withdrawing. Her mandibles clicked softly, a rare fracture in composure. Ritual authority had forged her dominion's legions, unyielding as star steel. Yet here, this human's raw initiative matched it, not through divine mandate, but sheer, unassuming competence. No boast, no demand for glory. He knelt already, binding a sentry's wound with field strips, his focus shifting seamlessly to the next threat. Equality. Not in blood or right, but in the forge of crisis. The thought pierced her like a fresh claim bond, intimate and irrevocable. Summon the Strategic Council, she declared as aides reconvened, her tone brooking no dissent. Warden Oren joins via secure link, and realign Princess Lyssa's guard. His command, effective immediately. No proxies. Murmurs rippled, subtle at first, then overt as High Arbiter Vexer strode in, his robes a cascade of judgment glyphs. Empress, this breaches precedent. A Xeno directing the heir's shield? The court fractures further while Thalor feasts on our division. She met his gaze, unyielding, the chamber's air thickening with incense and tension. Precedent yields to survival, Arbiter. Oren's countermeasure preserved the pass. Your ledgers would have tallied it lost. Vexar's frills quivered. Allies clustering like shadows. Precisely the peril. Empowering a human invites lineage taint. The strike was no coincidence. Enemies exploit your indulgence. Abdication whispers grow. Punish the ward, reclaim purity, or the dominion crumbles under alien whim. The accusation landed like venom, courtiers' eyes darting. Xenophobes emboldened, traditionalists nodding. Lyssa's safety, her own legacy, weaponized against her. Altera felt the propriety crack further, not in rage but resolve, her claw tracing the claim seal at her throat. Jacob's face flickered on the council feed, oblivious to the storm, coordinating evac with iron medics in seamless tandem. His humility a quiet rebuke to their fears. "Enough," she intoned, rising to full imperial height, the dome's lights haloing her crest. "The realm bleeds while you hoard statutes. By emergency proclamation, I commission Warden Jacob Oren as legate of the Vale Front. Full tactical writ, answerable to me alone. All forces unify under this banner, or answer treason." Gasps echoed. Vexar recoiled, his glyphs dimming. "Empress, this stakes your throne on a human's unproven." "Unproven?" She silenced him with a gesture, activating the proclamation feed galaxy-wide, her voice steady as void steel. "The Thalor Cascade tests us. Legate Oren has proven equal to the blade. We wield him or fall divided." On the pass feed, Jacob paused mid-briefing, brow furrowing at the title's weight, but he nodded once, turning back to his sentries with that same grounded focus, binding their cuts while plotting the next patrol. No arrogance, just quiet acceptance, his endurance carrying them forward as irons leaned in, frills relaxing in newfound rhythm. Aelthara watched the feeds converge, reinforcements linking seamlessly under his improvised chain, Thalor signatures scattering. Political tempests would rage, Vexar's faction sharpening knives, but survival's edge cut true. For the first time, the human thread felt not a liability, but a partner's sinew, her authority entwined with his competence in ways the court could no longer deny. Yet as the council dispersed in stunned compliance, a deeper intercept hummed. Thalor not retreating, but regrouping, their core fleet veiling a prize strike toward the capital core. Oren's gaze met the camera then, steady. "Empress, we've bought time. What's the play?" She leaned forward, the bond tightening. "You tell me, Legate." The Dominion listens. Jacob's gaze held steady, those unyielding human eyes locking onto hers without flinching. "Then hear this, Empress. The whispers in the outer cloisters aren't idle. Your review today, it's the perfect stage. Double the vanguard on the high balconies. I'll take the flank shadows myself." Althara's frills twitched. A flicker of irritation she quelled beneath imperial calm. The human presumed much, yet his counsel pierced the court's veiled daggers like light through fog. She nodded once, sharply. "As you advise, Legate Oren. Proceed." The Grand Plaza thrummed with the Dominion's pulse, thousands of irons arrayed in iridescent ranks, their scale plates gleaming under the twin suns. Aelthara ascended the review days, Lissa at her side, the princess's slender form radiating quiet defiance after her own near death. Banners snapped in the wind, proclaiming unity, but Aelthara sensed the fracture lines, noble houses simmering, xenophobes decrying the human ward who had shielded her heir. Jacob moved like smoke among the shadows, his unadorned human frame blending into the stonework, ignored by guards who dismissed him as mere ornament. She raised her scepter, voice booming through amplifiers. "Irons of the Dominion, we stand unbroken, our bloodline eternal." A glint flashed from the upper galleries. Poison dart. She registered in the instant before it arced true, aimed for her throat, laced with neurotoxin that felled queens in heartbeats. Gasps rippled the crowd. Jacob exploded from cover, a blur of muscle and intent. He vaulted the balustrade, body twisting midair to intercept, the dart buried in his shoulder with a meaty thunk, but he didn't falter. Lunged onward, tackling the cloaked assassin over the edge. They plummeted together, crashing into the plaza below, amid shattering stone. Jacob rose first, blood sheeting from the wound, wrenching a second dart from the assassin's grip mid-draw. He pinned the figure, stripping a comms bead from its collar. "Talk," he growled, voice carrying faintly to the dais. The assassin spat venom, scales paling. "Vesper Concord bankrolled us. Your human taint ends the line." Aelthara's pulse thundered, frills fully erect in shock. Guards swarmed, but Jacob had already secured the bead, his free hand stemming his own bleeding with a makeshift compress from his tunic, tourniquet tight, pressure precise, as if wounds were mere inconveniences. He met her eyes across the chaos, nodding once. Conspiracy deeper than we thought. Medics rushed him as the plaza erupted in murmurs, nobles' faces twisting in outrage and awe. Lissa clutched her mother's arm. "He took it for you, mother. Again." Aelthara descended, propriety cracking as she knelt by Jacob amid the pooling blood. Legate, report. His breath rasped, but humor glinted. Vesper Concord's fingerprints all over it. Their agents embedded in 3 houses here. They're prepping a full incursion. Claim you're destabilized. Intervene for stability. He handed her the bead, already decrypting its cipher on a wristpad jury-rigged from Envoy Tech. Patterns scrolled. Troop movements. Bribes logged in triplicate. Her tacticians paled. Impossible. Concord's fleets are months out. Not anymore. Jacob cut in, multitasking through pain, coordinating guards via comms while cross-referencing alien star charts with human pattern tricks. They accelerated. Jump points priming now. We blockade diplomatically first. Hit their purse strings. Iothara rose, stealing her voice for the broadcast. The Dominion endures. Legate Orin has unmasked traitors. We counterstrike. Not with blades alone, but wisdom. In the war chamber hours later, Jacob endured the med pods without murmur, shoulder-stitched but ignored as he pored over holomaps. Aelthara watched him juggle feeds, her diplomat's channels, his field intel from the bead, even Lissa's youthful insights on court whispers. Iron aides faltered at the pace, frills drooping from fatigue, but the human pressed on, linking Concord's bribes to noble ledgers in ways their rote analysts missed. Your species. How? Murmured High Consul Vren, scales flushing violet in reluctant wonder. Pain should cripple you. Jacob shrugged, humble as ever. Just keep going. What's the play, Empress? She activated channels, her voice a regal blade. To the Concord Overlord, your aid insults our sovereignty. Pull back, or face embargo from the inner spheres. My claim, ratified by blood. Jacob's intel armed the bluff. Exposed accounts that would bankrupt their war chest. Concord blinked first, fleets halting at the jump perimeter. Aides buzzed. A human saw the threads we overlooked, but choice loomed heavier now. In her private sanctum, Aelthara paced. Lissa, at her side. Jacob rested nearby, wounds bandaged, already sketching maneuvers. The court bayed. Xenophobes decried the human's interference, demanding his exile to preserve purity. Tradition bound her. Honor saviors with claim or death. Lissa lived because of him. Now she did too. Image or truth? You hesitate, Jacob said softly, reading her tension without presumption. The Dominion's eyes judge. Claim you as consort, protector general. It shatters precedent. Nobles revolt. Concord exploits. He met her gaze, unflinching. Your call. I serve. Lissa stepped forward. He saved us both. Honor it. Aelthara's frills settled, decision crystallizing. Duty cracked open to something fiercer. Partnership. No more shadows. You stand at my right, as equal. The court ceremony dawned in the Crystal Hall. Nobles assembled under hovering envoys from neighbor states. Aelthara entered, Jacob at her flank. Promoted openly. Wounds a badge. Gasps echoed as she raised the oathblade. By right of blood and shield, I claim Legate Jacob Orin, consort and protector general. His rights bind as mine, voice and counsel, hand in war. Challenge this, challenge me. Nobles shifted, frills quivering. Lord Kale's face soured, but envoys nodded warily, the political reality sinking in. No reversal now. Treaties invoked, alliances locked. Jacob stood tall, humble surprise in his eyes. Empress. Aelthara, she corrected, voice low, the crack widening to warmth. Together they orchestrated the endgame. From the command nexus, Jacob multitasked, directing errand fleets with adaptive tactics, human feints blending their precision volleys, while Aelthara's diplomacy isolated Concord's allies. He spotted patterns and enemy signals, improvising a cipher trap that lured conspirators into ambush. Iron Marines, bolstered by his resilience coaching, pushed through the burn, held lines longer than doctrine allowed. Concord's vanguard shattered at the blockade, their bankrollers exposed and fleeing. Conspirators in the court yielded, quashed by irrefutable logs. Lissa's succession secured, the Dominion breathed steady. Backlash brewed. Kale's faction hissed in alcoves, but Aelthara finalized it at the Sunset Convocation. The claim endures. Law reshapes. Humans, proven, share our hearth. Jacob's hand brushed hers, a quiet bond. Her frills warmed, not from duty but choice. She had ruled alone. Now, power multiplied in alliance. Vren approached later, scales humble. We researched your kind, Legate, endurance like stone, minds weaving chaos into order. Forgive our blindness, Jacob smiled faintly. Just doing the work, together's better. Iothara watched them, heart steady. She was born to rule, and learned that true power was finding an equal.